Inte.
Gasly gets his first podium since 2021.
It was wet weather chaos in Zandvoort, provided us a fantastic spectacle, provided the drivers and the strategists a really, really tough afternoon. And it was Pierre Gasly who had the biggest smile on Sunday, moving all the way from 12th up to 3rd place, getting a podium for Alpine. But Bernie Collins, it was a brilliant strategy, maybe not a perfect strategy.
Yeah, maybe not perfect. A lot of hard work out there between the pit wall and the driver, lots to contend with. 2 switches to Inter for Gasly were almost perfectly timed, making the most of the situation. But the one switch to dry, maybe a bit too hesitant, and despite the P3 finish, maybe there was more to be gained.
That shows how much of a hectic day it was. All those position gains, still maybe more on there. Nonetheless, Alpine were chuffed at the end of play. We're going to have a closer look at the detail.
So Jolyon, if we start with the formation lap and what drivers were told during this, is some interesting discussion just from the Gasly side.
Lots of rain starting. Yeah, copy that, mate. This rain won't be very long.
It's tough communication here, isn't it? Because the engineers are looking at the weather radar. They're trying to gauge what to do. Clearly, we're on the soft, slick tyre, and they're coming around now on the formation lap to start. From a driver's point of view, you're quite nervy now. Where's the grip going to be? And you're thinking, are we going to pit for intermediates?
Yeah, and I think all morning they just got away with the being just missing the track. So I think a lot of pit walls were set up to go, we're going to get away with this. And it's about changing that attitude quickly enough to get on top of it.
So we go to lap 1 then in the race. Gasly's in the pack. We're expecting just to be a little bit of light rain, but if we see what happened then, it's a little bit more than light rain.
Yeah, exactly. And the reaction to it's really, really good from Gasly's side.
Box now. Okay, box. Copy. Tires to Inter. Why was it so long? Okay, head down, mate, head down. 1 for after the race.
I love that. How many times can you say box in one sentence? He's got the world record for it there, but you can't get a clearer radio message than that. And throughout the field, there was a lot of iffy radio messages. There was a lot of indecision from teams and drivers. Generally, the drivers were calling the shots to come in, but no one called it more emphatically than Pierre. And that's got to be nice to be hearing on the pit wall as well, someone that knows what they want to do here.
Yeah, exactly. It is very clear. And I think the reason he keeps repeating it is there's just no response for what feels like a very long time. And it must feel even longer in the cockpit. You know what you want to do, but you're just not getting the confirmation that they're going to be ready for it. They're maybe helped a little bit by being a bit further down the pit lane so they can react to that quite quickly. But really strong comms, and the pit wall reacted in the right way and just made it happen.
It's actually still a risky call because there was less than half the field pitted at the end of lap 1. Everyone that pitted made a big gain. Even actually Pierre had a slow stop, wasn't particularly happy about that. He's been jumped by Zhou in the Alfa Romeo here. But now he's kind of read the weather situation on the track. If it suddenly stopped raining and dries out quite quickly, this wouldn't have been such a great call. But maybe being a little bit further back, you take a gamble. He read the situation was so slippery and he just went for it.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason that the pit wall is a little bit delayed in coming back to him, because what you're trying to work out on the pit wall is if you stop for Inter and then have to stop to dry again, that's 21.5 seconds each time. So 43 seconds you can lose staying on a dry and still equal out. So that's what they're trying to work out. Is it going to be bad enough that the Inter is the right decision? But, they've accepted that it is, and they move on from there.
Yeah, so the pit wall are trying to work it out. Gasly's not interested in the workings. He's just like, I'm coming in, let's just do it. And it pays out really well because immediately the Inter's 20 seconds faster per lap than the slicks for the drivers that stayed out. So anyone that pitted on lap 2 or 3 or even 4, worst case, had the 43 seconds of in and out of the pits, didn't take the 20 seconds gain.
And you can really see that in this graph here. So this graph just basically shows lap number along the bottom and the position that the driver started in on your side there, and then how they progress through it. So you can see post, on lap 5, when we've just now got most people onto the Inters, Gasly's initially lost positions because he's done his pit stop, and then had this massive gain in positions as other people have stopped too late and now on lap 5 running in P3.
And what's interesting is comparing the best strategy to the worst strategy at this point. Pitting on lap 1 was the best. Gasly jumped all those positions. He starts the race next to Lance Stroll. He's fighting with Stroll on the first lap. Stroll, at the end of it, pits lap 4, which is the worst case. At that point, you needed to be staying out fully, and Stroll ends up basically last. So that's the decision the driver takes, and it paid off huge.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really clear, and they've made good progress there. So then the next big decision point comes, when is the right time to get off that inter back onto the dry tyre? And again, there's some radio comms to go with that.
Got a few more cars out on the soft, which seems a little bit faster at the moment. And how's the track?
Really dry.
Copy.
Let's box.
Copy. And boxing this lap.
So Pierre's in 4th place before this round of stops. And this one looks like not the optimal decision. This is the one decision here where they've waited a little bit long. Even he's on the intermediates, he's saying, yeah, it's pretty dry. And the team had quite a lot of information about the softs already.
Yeah, so if we just switch over to the data side then, I think this is where it's slow reaction coming from the pit wall. So this is the position when everyone's still on inter that Gasly's in. So you can see Gasly behind Zhou, ahead of Alonso. As you say, at this stage, running in P4 of the Grand Prix. If you just switch to the tyre crossover chart, we can see the information that the team at this stage has available. So this chart plots all of the lap times that have been set across teams. The green obviously showing intermediate lap times and the red showing the soft. At this point, we've got quite a few drivers that have either remained on the soft from the start of the race or starting to switch to the soft tyre. So we can see in this area here, at the point they're deciding to box, that the soft tyre is significantly faster lower down this chart than the intermediate tyre. And this has been ongoing for, a significant amount of time at the point that the team have now told Gasly, we thinking of boxing. So it's really that the team should have maybe given him that information a lap or two sooner, because the information looks, in hindsight, like it was there.
Yeah, and there were guinea pigs available in the form of Albon, Piastri, who never actually took an intermediate at all. So they ran through the worst of the slicks, ran through as it came back, and then they were those data points that showed the tyre was there. And when you could put a soft on, you have to, because the same reason that lap 1 is so much quicker. And that was the undercut for Fernando Alonso going past Gasly with that decision.
Yeah, and like you say, you can see it here. The soft's very slow here, and you can see it rapidly improving. So there's lots of data points that really build up to the soft's going to be quicker. So if we just switch back to the home page on this one then. So at this point, we can see that Gasly's running with Zhou and Alonso very close together. Gasly behind Zhou, with Alonso not that far behind. Gasly highlighted here on the track circle. And this is a point that they have information that the dry tyre is very rapidly becoming the best tyre to be on. From this point then, 2 of these cars stop. So we can see now that Gasly's on track and Alonso and Zhou have emerged together. Zhou actually at this stage has fitted the medium and Alonso the soft. Very quickly then, if we just play this forward, Alonso is actually able to overtake Zhou because of the strength of that soft tyre, and very rapidly starting to close the gap into Gasly's pit window. So Gasly being here and the edge of his pit window here. So you can see already, not even halfway around the lap, Alonso and Zhou are fast enough to have made up that position when they box. When Gasly boxes at this stage, then he ends up behind both of those drivers, which, as we've discussed, we think is where the wrong decision comes in, because this is the point that Alonso has undercut Gasly. And as we know, Alonso went on to be 1 step higher on the podium.
So that is a crucial position lost at this phase. They had the information available. Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo used it more wisely. Zhou actually, because they fitted the medium, didn't take good advantage on the outlap that's done by Alonso. Gasly actually emerged right with him. But Fernando Alonso's through, and that's the podium place at that time gone. That's 3rd place for Pierre.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll just let this finish out and just watch Alonso go by on the main straight. But that's the point where the pit wall, a little bit faster reaction given, and Gasly made the right call when he was told the soft was quicker, but a bit quicker reaction would have allowed him to box on the same as Alonso and try and hold on to that position.
Yeah, so there he comes out. He's just ahead of Zhou because of that medium tyre and not a good outlap from him. So he's actually overcut Zhou But it's the Alonso threat in the quicker Aston Martin that comes through. And what's worse news for Pierre Gasly is he's got a 5-second penalty looming as well. So that fight for third, he's had such a great start to the race. That strategy wasn't great. And he's got a 5-second penalty. So from here on, the race is looking like it's maybe a little bit of a glance backwards.
Yeah, and just a quick comment on the 5-second penalty. We've seen in one of the previous clips, he's reminded of his intermediate switch. Each of the tyres have a different circumference. So having that switch in the wrong position is likely what caused the penalty, because we cut at such fine margins on the pit limiter that that's possibly what put him just over on that one pit stop. So if we switch back to videos, then we can sort of watch what progresses through the rest of the race. We now have Gasly on a soft tyre, and they'd complete another pit stop.
Box the slap, please. Box the slap. Mind a 5-second penalty. Box the slap. So be close with Russell on pit exit. He's on the hard tyre.
So they're eager to cover off Russell now. Russell had that poor strategy at the start, was with Stroll, pitted lap 4, lost everything from the lead of the race. But Mercedes is sending him long. Alpine on a circuit that's not easy to overtake on, just trying to cover him off with this one.
Carlos had pitted just before this, but with the extra penalty for Gasly, Gasly does emerge behind, obviously. But you're getting into proper dry weather strategy now. They're just completing the race as they need to. And it's good that they're fit to serve this penalty in a full race rather than under safety car or carrying it to the end of the race like Perez did.
Yeah, well, we saw that play out, didn't we? So this is run-of-the-mill stuff. They actually do well. They just about cover George Russell off. It's very close on pit exit, but that's job done. He's lost place to Sainz, but actually, just some brilliant driving will get that place back for Pierre, coming past Carlos Sainz.
It's a position improved for Pierre Gasly. He gets past Carlos Sainz, and despite all of this, they're going to have to deal with the rain, which all the teams believe is coming.
So Gasly passes Sainz with a brilliant move on the track. But it is true that taking that 5-second penalty, because we saw the back-to-back, didn't we, later on, Perez also had the 5-second penalty. But if you could take it in the dry, losing just the one place, that freed up Pierre for the eventual podium.
It's what comes next that's really interesting then as well, because you've made one good decision, one maybe not so good decision, and you've still got more decisions to make in this race. So what's important, what comes next, is what we end up seeing on the radar. So what we have now is more rain approaching the circuit. You can see the circuit here in the middle, and you can see this band of rain moving in, and it's going to hit this turn 1-2 first on the circuit. And that's pretty crucial, I think, for what comes next.
It's actually amazing the fine margins of this race, isn't it? Because the first band of rain on the first lap hit the south side of the track, came in the final sector, and drivers had very little time to react. And that's where we saw Pierre cool in the box a million times. This one, it comes in the first corner. And when you're driving, you're thinking, actually, we're on slick tyres here. The grip's feeling good. And you're hearing that there's rain falling and a pit lane decision. It's very confusing for the driver. So sometimes you've got to trust your instincts. Sometimes you've got to trust the pit wall.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really crucial here in this one. So we'll just listen to what happened in Gasly's case.
Light spots of rain here now.
Yeah, rain. Let's box. You want to box or not? Let's go one more lap. One more lap.
One more lap, one more lap.
No, box.
Box, into.
Super late decision then from Pierre once again. So initially wanted one more lap, and then I don't know if it was the rain there or if he saw just some blinking lights in the pit lane and thought, I don't want to be left out. But that one, this really saves the podium for him at the end.
Yeah, so this is something that's happened to me in the past. We had Russia in 21, I think it was, where the section of track just before the pit entry is actually the driest section of track. So the driver's been told there's rain coming on the radar. He knows it's going to be heavy rain. They're aware that they're going to have to switch to intermediate tyres. It's just about calling the right lap now. So what happens is you end up with that discussion in the last part of the circuit where it's actually dry. And that's why Pierre says, oh, it feels okay, I think one more lap. So twice that happened to me in Russia that year, where the driver got round to pit entry, it was still dry, calls another lap, but gets to turn 1 and realises, oh, actually, the pit wall was correct. So it's good comms here, and especially good that they were ready for him anyway. But I think he comes around the final corner, looks down the main straight. You can see the rain falling at turn 1, and then they call the pit stop.
It's absolutely critical to the race now for Pierre, because he's running in such a good position, in 4th place at this stage. And had he done another lap, he would have certainly lost position to Carlos Sainz, who did pit, and would have fallen out of that podium contention when Perez had his 5-second penalty. But when you're driving, like you said, you just feel what the grip underneath you. It's very difficult to think about what it's going to be like on the next lap. So it is the communication here that's critical. And he comes in, makes a nice pit stop onto the intermediates, and at this stage just cements the position.
Yeah, exactly. It's so crucial for what is happening next. And then, as we know from the radar, heavy rain hits the circuit.
Yeah, it's critical decisions then to make at the right point. And with Sergio Perez's 5-second penalty, when the race restarted, Pierre did manage to get that third position, and well, he had decent pace to make it, but 2 huge strategy points. And for everyone, you can see here how much on a knife edge they were. Lap 1, big calls, and then right at the end as well, big calls. In the end, we can hear from him now, a very happy Pierre Gasly.
Today was an insane race, like a lot of actions, a lot of calls. I called it on lap 1 to box straight away. We had great pit stop, great strategy. The pace was good. I could keep up and even pull away from the Ferrari and kind of stay not too far from Fernando. And yeah, it just got me very excited again. You know, we're fighting for this position is obviously a lot more enjoyable. And yeah, we had a small penalty, 5-second penalty, but luckily on the other side, Checo had a 5-second penalty as well. And yeah, it all worked out.
Well, that's it from us. Our third and final episode of the series is done. And for the second year in a row, we featured Pierre Gasly after his pit lane to points heroics in Spa last year. Thanks as ever, Bernie. Great stuff. 9 more races to go still this season. Let's hope they're all as dramatic as Zandvoort.
P3.
Let's go! Let's go! Woo-hoo-hoo!
Amazing, man. Amazing.
What a race! What a race!